Coming up on WTV News, last week marked 12 years since the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Find out how a group of Waverly students honored the day.
And one Wartburg alum is going the distance across the state of Iowa. See why he's touring all 99 counties in 7 months.
When I had heard about them, I thought, wow, I could do something similar to that or with a different subject matter, and I thought Doctor Who would work really well.
And watching your favorite TV shows for class? A new Wartburg course gives students a peek into pop culture and its social impact. WTV News starts now.
You're watching WTV News, live on Wartburg Television. From the Grant Price Studio. Breaking news, local coverage, and sports. This is WTV News.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of WTV News. I'm Elizabeth Jewett.
And I'm Caitlin Harback. We want to bring you an update on some breaking news from earlier this morning. Shootings took place this morning near Capitol Hill and the White House at the Washington Navy Yard in the southeast part of the city.
The Associated Press released this afternoon that a fallen suspect has been identified. 34-year-old Aaron Alexis of Fort Worth, Texas, is suspected of shootings happening in the Washington Navy Yard. So far, there have been at least a dozen fatalities from the shooting. The investigation is now in the hands of the FBI and investigation teams as police assist them in finding at least one other potential suspect. Everyone enjoys watching their favorite television show, but how about taking a class on it? Colleges across the U.S. are now taking a deeper look into some television cult classics.
WTV's Jeannie Edson took a look at Wartburg's own pop TV classes and why this is becoming such a popular trend.
Zombies, time travel, futuristic societies, and vampire slayers. Popular television shows have jumped off the screen and into the classroom. The trend is happening on campuses across the country, and Wartburg College is no exception. Professor David Brennan, a self-described pop culture enthusiast, is currently leading an IS 201 course centered around the British sci-fi TV show Doctor Who. Brennan believes the jump from pop culture TV to pop quizzes is beneficial to many students.
The idea was that the professors get to choose special topics that they think students might be interested in. And I know that Doctor Who has become such a big global event.
In recent years, Wartburg students have taken a look at the cult classics Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Firefly. But there is much more to the course besides watching TV.
Because the 201 class has a diversity component, I'm hoping that they'll use the episodes that I'm showing and reference a comparison to our own society and how we treat those that might be underprivileged or minority classes that don't get as much of a voice in society, and they'll see some of the ways that these stories are captured in the episodes.
Reporting for WTV, I'm Jeannie Edson.
Brennan also said he hopes the course will give insight to British television and culture. To learn more about Wartburg's pop culture classes and their mission, visit thewartburgcircuit.org.
America's Music Series began this week, bringing the blues and gospel to campus. A 6-week session of music classes is being offered this fall. Other genres besides blues and gospel will also be presented, including Broadway, bluegrass, and swing jazz, as well as a live music component. Wartburg students are encouraged to attend, as well as the Waverly community. If you would like to attend, classes are Thursday nights from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Wartburg Lyceum or Waverly Library.
Pitch Perfect introduced us to the world of a cappella and vocal percussion. Wartburg students got to experience some of the music action last week. ETK brought a 5-man band with no instruments to Wartburg College on Thursday night. The performance filled Newman Auditorium with laughter, cheers, and music. Named after a family member's boat, Home Free comes from St. Paul, Minnesota. They performed at this year's Iowa State Fair and Cattle Congress.
We're a fun bunch of guys. We have a good time. If we're having a good time, they're having a good time. If they're having a good time, we're having a good time. We like to break down the fourth wall right away so the audience feels like they're just with us. And then we get to show them what we do. We get to make them laugh a little bit. So they walk out of here thinking that was an hour or two well spent.
One Wartburg organization is making it easier and cheaper to find school supplies. Wartburg Sustainability started the reuse store in the basement of Old Main to give students and faculty a place for free school supplies. The store is open year-round and all are welcome to do some reuse shopping. People can find anything from pens, notebooks, and even brochure holders. Sustainability Coordinator Ann Duncan says it's a pay-it-forward kind of store.
The expectation is if you don't need it, you bring it back. If you gently use it, you'll bring it back. When you move out, if there's anything you don't want to take with you, bring it back.
There are many students looking to find a workout class that fits their needs. The Wartburg Waverly Sports and Wellness Center is offering a variety of classes open to the community and students. Some of the classes offered this fall include Zumba, H2O Fitness, and Operation Transformation. Classes are offered year-round and have a little something for everyone.
I like to work out on my own, but I'm not as motivated when I'm by myself. So when I know that there's going to be 30 other people here at 6:15 in the morning, it's a lot easier for me to get out of bed.
In 2008, a young Nigerian man came to the States to study chemistry and leadership. 5 years and 1,000 miles later, this Wartburg alum wants to take his travels even further. I got the opportunity to speak to this Wartburg grad about his future plans. After graduation in 2012, Ajamu Mohammed found his first job working at an ethanol plant in Hartley, Iowa. But then he discovered something after college.
You realize that you've been kind of spoiled by Wartburg. Like as an international student, that we get a lot of attention that once you leave this environment, you miss it.
So, Muhammad found a new hobby to add during his spare time.
So I decided, you know what? How about I visit the whole 99 counties? So I'm doing what I like, as well as keeping myself busy.
Before visiting a county, Muhammad researches and finds something unique to visit.
For Butler County, I went to the smallest church in Iowa.
Attractions like churches, museums, and the Iowa culture capture his interest.
I like something, something historical. I like to see, what things stand for what.
He records his adventures through his photographs and posts them online. He has visited over 50 counties and hopes to finish by December. Muhammad may not be an Iowa native, but he wants other students like him to not feel limited by their international status.
It's actually cool that you are able to live in two different cultures. I have lived most of my life back home, but just 4 years, I have changed a lot. People might not realize it, and I think actually sooner or later you will.
Muhammad said after finishing his county tour, he will have traveled over 3,000 miles in about 60 hours. To read more about Muhammad's adventures across the state, visit the Wartburg Circuit.
Coming up on WTV News, historic downtown Waverly will be seeing some changes. Find out how renovations will bring new living options to the area.
And later on in Sports Night, find out if Wartburg could avenge last year's shutout loss to Bethel in the Twin Cities. We'll be back in 2 minutes. The downtown district of Waverly received a state grant this summer. The grant, which is worth $2.5 million, will be used to refurnish 26 new apartments at 6 different properties.
This week, WTV's Kelsey Bemis found out what the new apartments will look like and the construction challenges that will come along with remodeling these historic properties.
Extreme Makeover Home Edition does it. Flip This House does it. And now, Waverly can do it. With the grant received this summer, Waverly residents will now get the chance to see this transformed into this.
I sort of was always an optimist about receiving the dollars, and so when they finally came in, it was still pretty awe-inspiring experience because it really is going to be transformative for the city of Waverly.
The apartments will be 1 or 2 bedrooms and will be completely renovated.
A lot of it will be kind of what you could consider a gut rehab. A lot of these buildings don't even have electrical upstairs, so brand new plumbing, brand new electrical.
Some of these buildings date clear back to the 1800s. With such dating, construction may not be an easy task.
They're all over 50 years old and closer to 100. We'll just have to work with our building and zoning to make sure that individuals are in a safe environment.
With so much history in these buildings, the city aims to keep as much of the original structures as they can.
So when it's possible to leave existing walls where they are, the architects will. Where it's possible to really save some of those old wood windows and not replace them, they will.
No matter which property future Lucky owners live in, the project committee guarantees each will be a treasure to the downtown community.
All of the finishings and everything will be identical on all of the units. So they'll all be, wonderfully beautiful brand new units right here in the heart of Waverly.
Reporting for WTV, I'm Kelsey Bemis.
Neuendorf says that the Chamber is currently in the process of planning an upstairs viewing for these buildings, and that details will be announced as soon as the date is decided on.
A new business is coming to Waverly, and it's one unlike the city has ever seen. On Monday, the City Council approved a tobacco permit for a hookah bar. Morel's Lounge will be owned by Wolf Creek Tattoos owner Monte Snyder. It will be located next to the tattoo shop on Main Street. Snyder says he hopes to have the shop open by Wartburg's homecoming. He said he hopes to give the Wartburg community a new place to just hang out.
I hope that they all give it a try and come just enjoy the amenities, and just relax and chill out, and to do some homework, maybe get out of the dorms, get out of your dorm room, and the library, and have something a little bit different.
Coming up in 2 minutes, instead of spending time in the classroom, see how middle schoolers volunteer their time to honor 9/11.
And find out how one new Waverly business is making life a little bit sweeter for our furry friends. We'll be right back.
These kids were babies on September 11th of 2001, and so they have heard a lot of the bad things that happened that day, and I think it's our opportunity to teach them to not to be victims, but to be, hey, let's do something good and make something good out of a bad thing.
Welcome back to WTV News.
12 years ago, almost 3,000 people lost their lives in the September 11th terrorist attacks.
While remembering the tragedy, the nation hopes to make it into a day of service.
WSR students were part of 35 million other Americans who participated in service projects on 9/11.
Libby Dix is just 12 years old. Also 12 years ago was 9/11. But instead of focusing on the terrible things that happened that day, she and 120 of her classmates are doing something to make Waverly a better place for its veterans.
But we decided we wanted to make it a happier day, so we decided to show our patriotism by coming out here to help.
Everybody remembers the 3,000 lives that were lost, and that's obviously very, very, very important. But in my opinion, what's even more important is how we reacted to that event.
75 7th graders combed through the cemetery looking for the 1,000 veterans' headstones that are buried in Harlington.
It's the last name, but not the first name.
And then documented their location with their iPads. The information will eventually be up on a website for family members to find loved ones and lost relatives.
Samuel Wilson.
The idea started this spring.
The 8th graders last year were putting out flags on Memorial Day, and they noticed that an 1812 veteran didn't have a headstone, and they were angry about that.
These 8th graders were also at work cleaning up 30 grave sites, including one of a Civil War soldier at the abandoned Warren Township Cemetery.
There's over 300 types of natural grasses, and we're trying to disturb those as little as possible.
At the end of the day, Libby remembers those who died in the terrorist attack, and also those who were there to save lives.
I kind of feel good about it. It makes me feel like I'm doing something important to our community to help out.
The 8th graders found and cleaned up 27 graves in the abandoned Warren Township Cemetery.
Syrian officials have reached an agreement to avoid military action. Syria agreed to a Russian plan to give up its chemical weapons, which could stall international military strikes. The agreement was made only a day after President Obama spoke to the nation Wednesday. The crisis still continues on as questions remain unanswered during the Middle Eastern civil war. As creeks become rivers and rivers began to rage, some first responders were stranded and unable to help those people who were in the flood's path. The weather has improved out in Colorado, and many residents have been able to return to their homes and begin to recover from the damage. One National Guard official said this could be the largest evacuation effort since Hurricane Katrina. Wartburg security has told us that the students at Wartburg West are safe and all accounted for. Coming up next on WTV News, some new business owners in Waverly are proving that when you're an entrepreneur, age doesn't matter.
And coming up soon on Sports Night, find out if the women's soccer team were able to turn around their season in Badger State over the weekend. Two Waverly Shell Rock kids are proving that you are never too young to start your own business. 7th grader JC Meyer and her sister 5th grader Avery Meyer started their own dog-themed business called J. Ray's Pup Cakery. JC makes and sells healthy dog treats, and Avery creates custom colorful dog collars. 4% of all sales goes to the girls' favorite charity, Retrieving Freedom, a program that helps to train and provide veterans with a service dog. While the girls enjoy their business, they say that they don't want it to overtake their lives.
I think it'll stay about the same. I don't want it to take up everything that I do. I want to do other stuff besides just my business. But I don't want it to get any smaller than it is.
And Nathan Ford joins us now to take a look at what's coming up in 2 minutes on Sports Night.
Discover what Olympic wrestling being reinstated means for Jim Miller's plans for the sport here in Iowa. Plus, the Wartburg football team on the road against a top 10 opponent on Saturday, looking to avenge a shutout loss last season. We have all the highlights coming up on Sports Night.
Thanks for joining us on WTV News. Stay on Wartburg Television for Sports Night live in 2 minutes. Have a great night.
Hello and welcome to Sports Night. I'm Nathan Ford. 2 weekends ago, Wartburg started its season on a high note, defeating McMurray on the road 58-7. This past weekend, Justin Zacconi and I were on the road to see if the Knights could avenge last season's 21-0 shutout to 8th-ranked Bethel. Bethel's first drive of the game lasted over 8 minutes as the Knights defense bent, but they don't break, blocking this field goal attempt. That got everyone on the visiting sideline fired up. The Knights' offense could not get anything going, though. Logan Schrader picked off by Josh Trimer, remember that name, at the Royal 40-yard line. Knights down by 3 at the end of the quarter. Bethel started to wear down the Knights' D in the second. Bryce Marquardt basically untouched into the end zone. Bethel up 9-0. Ensuing Wartburg possession, Trimer picks off Taylor Jacobsmeyer, takes it all the way to the house. Bethel is up 16-0 at halftime. The start of the second half just as bad for the Knights as the end of the first was. Bethel extends the lead to 30-0 at one point before a couple of Schrader TD passes in the fourth quarter, including this 32-yard toss to Donald Miller. Final score though, Bethel 30, Wartburg 17. Knights are 1-1 on the season. They host Carthage this Saturday in their home opener. After the break, see how the soccer teams did during their trip to Wisconsin over the weekend. And wrestling stays in the Olympic Games, but find out how 2 wrestling greats are keeping the sport alive in Iowa. The 22nd ranked Wartburg volleyball team's record improved to 500 for the first time this season after they went 3-1 at the UW Oshkosh Invitational over the weekend. The Knights went 1-1 on Friday, sweeping Ripon in the first game, but in the nightcap, Wartburg fell to UW Stevens Point. After gaining a 2-0 lead, the Pointers stormed back to win the final 3 sets. The Knights bounced back on the final day of the tournament, sweeping both St. Norbert and North Central in 3 sets. Senior Ramey Seek and junior Bailey Wilson were named to the all-tournament team. The Knights are now 6-6 and start Iowa Conference play this Tuesday at home against Central College at 7:30. You can listen to the game on KWAR. The Wartburg women started their week against UW Crosse at home. Sports Night's Seth Nutting was there to cover the game.
We picked things up here in the second half with the score knotted up 0-0. Both teams struggled early on to find the back of the net, nearly missing on several occasions. The Eagles would break the tie in the 76th minute, though, as senior Jamie Oschenwald scores a terrific goal to put UW La Crosse up 1-0. The Knights would respond with a goal of their own, this one from sophomore Lisa Trezino, saying, "Anything you can do, I can do better." Wartburg had a few chances to end the game in regulation, but were unable to do so as Taylor Woods misses wide right here at a shot on goal. In overtime, Woods would get another chance, and this time she would connect, sending the Knights home winners in a 2-1 double overtime victory. Reporting for SportsKnight, I'm Seth Nutting.
The Knights were looking to carry the momentum from that comeback win into their weekend trip to Wisconsin. But on Saturday, UW-Whitewater, ranked 3rd in the North Region, defeated 9th-ranked Wartburg in overtime on Caitlin Fritsch's 57th-minute goal. The Knights lost 1-0 again on Sunday, this time at the hands of UW-Oshkosh on a header in the 62nd minute. The Knights are now 2-4-1 and take on their 4th straight Wisconsin opponent when they host UW-Eau Claire Wednesday at 4 p.m. After tying Carleton on Wednesday, the men's soccer team hit the road with the women's team to Wisconsin this weekend. On Saturday, they squared off against UW-Whitewater. The Warhawks struck first in the 20th minute as they held the 1-goal lead into halftime. The Knights scored an equalizer when freshman Paris Martins put one in the back of the net in the second half, and the teams remained scoreless through regulation. But overtime didn't last long. UW-Whitewater scores 5 minutes into OT to hand Wartburg their first loss of the season. The squad looked to rebound the next day at 14th-ranked UW-Oshkosh. After the first half produced goose eggs for both sides, the Knights broke through when junior Dan Nadeau put his 4th goal in the back of the net 62 minutes in. UW-Oshkosh evened the game up later on as the game went to OT for the 2nd straight day, and Wartburg couldn't get the victory again. They let up the game winner in the 109th minute. The Knights, which entered the week ranked 6th in the North Region, went 0-2-1 last week after going undefeated through their first 5 matches. Still to come in the final block of Sports Night.
We had to, whatever it was going to take, we were going to try to do to save the sport to be in the Olympics.
Wrestling is back in the Olympics. Hear reaction on how this affects Jim Miller's plans to put wrestling back on television. Last week, the IOC voted to keep wrestling in the Olympics. The world rejoiced, and Wartburg Wrestling let out a deep breath for an entirely different reason. SportsKnight's Justin Ciccone got reaction on why it means the sport can prosper back home.
With 49 votes, wrestling has been elected for the
This is the reaction of the USA Wrestling Universe as the IOC put wrestling back in the Olympics after months of campaigning. Former Wartburg head coach Jim Miller was on the edge of his seat as he awaited the fate of the Super Bowl of wrestling.
I felt like I had a big final match coming up watching this. I wasn't confident until I heard. I was very nervous.
Junior wrestler Braxton Chickchilli is not surprised that the sport refused to quit because doing anything other than fighting is against the wrestler's nature.
I mean, that's just the wrestler spirit, man. You ask every wrestler, I mean, we're tough, gritty kids. You know, our sport isn't show and flashy. It's not about the money or anything like that. It's about going out there and doing your job and taking care of your opponents.
That same spirit also lives on in Miller. He and Dan Gable are fighting to get college wrestling back on IPTV. Miller believes the vote gives them the juice to revive it.
It gives us validity, you know. It gives us the more times you're on TV, the more credible you become. And so we are trying to get Iowa Public Television for the first time in 30-some years. Last year didn't show any wrestling.
Reporting for SportsKnight, I'm Justin Ciccone.
For more up-to-the-minute Wartburg sports recaps, stats, and highlights, go to wartburgcircuit.org. And for live coverage of Wartburg athletics, check out the new live streaming network at wartburgnightvision.com. Night Vision will air its first live event this Saturday as the Wartburg football team takes on Carthage at Walston Hoover Stadium. Thanks for watching and good night.